an ounce. When you see the gold price flying through the roof, you realize that this is the time to do this because it's just a win-win-win. Not only are you getting that gold out of those dumps, but you're removing the dumps. You're releasing the land for other development. The residue material you've got, you're taking underground. And where mines are very dangerous, and we know people are still going under there, they're trying to mine under there, which is ridiculous. They're going to take that residue and fill all those tunnels so people cannot get in there. And I think it's time that we really went big time into getting the gold out of those dumps.
Martin, projects to recover chrome ore and platinum metals from tailings dams are underway in the Northwest Province.
Well, similar thing there. You've got these dumps, there's wealth on the dumps, and for some reason people seem to be able to get licenses to do this far quicker than they can for mining. And they're moving in now with the chrome price high. You've got Sylvania moving in there, getting the chrome out of there, but in the meantime, you see people getting employed. You see all sorts of activity around getting the wealth out of these dumps. And we've got so many of them. These ones that are in the Northwest Province, they have been mainly concentrating on getting platinum out. But now with the chrome price up, they're going for the chrome price as well.
And just finally, Martin, South Africa's ferrochrome industry is being slowed down because of unfavorable global market conditions.
This makes me really sad. We had a massive ferrochrome industry. We were the world leaders. In 2010, we were employing so many people and we had so much of a contribution to the economy. And the government was warned, look, we are losing this market because Eskom's electricity price is so high. We're not competing. And what has happened is that slowly this has come down to a point. And now you see Marafi appointing a situation on the stock exchange saying, look, we're going to have to slow down our production even more because of the fact that China is taking the market using our chrome ore.
Well, Martin, we have to leave it there for today, but Martin Creamer will be back with another edition of At the Coalface, same time next Friday. Well, that's it for today, and please enjoy your weekend. Be safe, enjoy all the sport, and let's all be back here on Monday. Thanks to the production team as well. Here's Mudupi Makhalimele with your latest news at 1.
Thank you very much, Sakina. The top stories at 1 o'clock. 3 suspects killed in a Durban shootout, and Plettenberg Bay Airport is shut down. A very good afternoon. A police officer is in a stable condition after being wounded in an incident in which 3 suspects were killed during a shootout with the police in Umlazi Township in Durban. Police say the suspects had hijacked a woman's vehicle in the area. Spokesperson Robert Netsiwunda.
A police officer is in a stable condition after he was shot at by suspects during a shootout, which left 3 suspected hijackers fatally wounded at T section in Umlazi earlier today. The suspects had just hijacked a woman of a vehicle at R section in Umlazi, and police responded swiftly. The suspects opened fire towards the police, and in self-defense, a shootout ensued. 3 suspects were shot and fatally wounded in the shootout. A police officer was shot in the arm and is in a stable condition. The suspects were found in possession of 3 firearms as well as the hijacked vehicle. The hijacked victim was not harmed.
The Northern Cape government has refuted claims that it has exhausted its budget. The provincial treasury says in a statement that the provincial administration still has enough to meet its financial obligations, but it has conceded that the fiscal situation is tight. The lion's share of the provincial budget goes to the health and education departments. The finance MEC is Venus Blennies.
We'd like to clarify that provincial administration is not in financial default, despite what the article claims. Like any other organization, we are facing financial difficulties, but we are still able to meet our financial commitments. As we settle in the 7th administration, we are very proud to announce the 9th unqualified with no findings audit outcome.
The Civil Aviation Authority has shut down the Plettenberg Bay Airport in the Western Cape. This follows a letter to the B2 municipality yesterday that the airport's license has been suspended with immediate effect. The authority says key to the suspension is the runway, which poses a significant safety risk. It says the municipality has the right to appeal this decision. The council has now authorized a team to negotiate the terms of a new agreement and to find the best method to repair the runway. City Power in Joburg says it has spent over 3 million rand in 2 months on replacing mini substations that have blown up. It says this is as a result of overloading in Alexandra, north of the city. The utility is currently cutting off illegal electricity connections in the township. Spokesperson Isaac Mangena says the illegal connections cause the switches at the substations to trip.
We are targeting an informal settlement that is built next to the school here. This informal settlement has been stealing electricity across the formalized houses on the other side, basically creating a situation of capacity constraints, overloading, and also forcing the electricity to trip many times. We have also seen our infrastructure basically blowing up because of this overloading of the network.
Analysts say that the ANC should ensure ethical governance in provinces in which it still has power if it is to win back the support it lost in the May elections. The party's NEC is holding a 6-day meeting in Boksburg, Joburg. The aim of the meeting is to reflect on the outcomes of the elections, which saw the ANC dip below 50% for the first time in 3 decades. Political analyst Bridget Masinga says the NEC is unlikely to come up with a recovery plan.
What the ANC can do collectively is to ensure that the municipalities, the provinces that they are still in charge, they need to ensure that they work there tirelessly to ensure that they regain the image. Because at the moment, you can see, as with Ramaphosa, he came to the office or to the presidency campaign of the ANC on the ticket of anti-corruption, but his government also was tainted by corruption allegations. So those are the issues that needs to be resolved, that they need to focus on ethical leadership.
And a 24-hour curfew has been imposed in 4 states in northern Nigeria. This after violence erupted yesterday during protest against the rising cost of living. Officials say they want to prevent further unrest, which has already left several people dead and many others injured. Police had to use tear gas and fire shots in the air to disperse the protesters. The top story at 1 o'clock, a police officer is in a stable condition after being wounded in an incident in which 3 suspects were killed during a shootout with the police in Umlazi Township in Durban. For SAFM News, Ke Mudupima Khalemele. Up next, The Full Circle.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
Nothing beats the feeling of relaxing on your couch after a long, hard day, getting rid of those work clothes and feeling the freedom of being in your PJs. Throwing off that lace front, undoing your hair, that makeup, voila, gone. It's going to be a quiet, relaxed night. Well, not on S3. Bring a whole lot of vroom to your weeknights with Top Gear Season 16. Monday to Wednesday at 10 p.m. and Top Gear specials such as Top Gear from A to Z and Top Gear The Races. Friday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. Channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Individual brilliance meets the power of teamwork. Big ups to the South African men's rowing team for their marvelous performance. Gold was delivered in a glittering fashion at the Olympic Games London 2012. South Africa's James Thompson, Matthew Britton, John Smith, and Lawrence Ndlovu made history as the first crew ever to win Olympic gold in rowing from Mzansi, Africa. And the first Olympic gold in the sport for the African continent. Africa, rise! Magical moments of the Olympics. Brought to you by SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
So all that I have to say must penetrate. You are my reflection. There's no other way to communicate. You are all I need to survive. You help to sustain my life. I don't know what I would do without you. 'Cause if I don't breathe, you don't exist. My smile in the morning, my healthy morning meal, my prayer in the afternoon. I call on you. I wake you up in me. Deep, deep in the center of my being, you are indeed a reflection of me. You are my reflection. With you I have no fear. With you there's nothing I can't bear. You are my weapon against enemies. Sometimes people think I'm crazy, 'cause with you I see no boundaries. A no-limit soldier. A woman who's bear fruit and named him after you. Love with you is real. I have no doubt. 'Cause every time I speak, I always think of you. I think of your eyes. I always think of you, and I think of your smile. Do you ever think of me? Think of my child. I always dream of you, being in your arms.
It is Osunlade coming through with Reflections. So My Reflections is the name of the song, and that is how we kick off a Friday. Of course, on a Friday, we turn up the volume just a little bit, and this is taking us back to the earlier 2000s, 2007, 2008, if the memory serves correct, with Osunlade bringing us this body of work. And I'm not too sure if the album was Osunlade and Divine Essence. I stand to be corrected. I must admit that my love for lounge/dance music kicked off a little bit later, way past the Soul Candy movement in the times when, the likes of Osunlade were collaborating with the likes of South African house lounge greats, DJ Christos, Vinny Da Vinci, DJ Monde, and so the list goes on. And I think it actually samples somebody, the song, but I'll leave it to you to give me that information if you know a little bit better, considering that we are also considered the one of the top 2 consumers of dance lounge music in the world. So no doubt there are people that are armed with the relevant information in as far as Osunlade and his undeniable contribution to the dance scene. It's fast approaching 1:15 on this fine Friday. I hope that you are ready to usher in a weekend of relaxation and rest. Very important to get those whenever and however you possibly can. And so as we wind down our Friday, on Fridays we take it nice and slow. We kekeleza just a little bit on the show. And today's no different. We're going to be celebrating 29 years of the Penduring Awards. And we've got Eben Kuhn, who's going to be joining us and telling us exactly what are the Penduring Awards and reflecting back on the last 29 years. Essentially, they celebrate and promote the usage of indigenous languages. We're also going to be looking at the business of sustainability that's still coming up in this hour. Stages, pages, screens, and more today as well. We catch up with we catch up with one of the performers in a 2-hander play that's being staged at the Joburg Theatre. We've got 2 stages, pages, screens, and more coming up for you today. The other one is coming up on the other side of 2:00, where we're going to be in conversation with an award-winning actor, writer, and director. Also, Buscade is also celebrating a milestone of a birthday. They are celebrating the 80th birthday of their founder, Rosemary, and they're coming through to a studio. They're going to give us a little bit of a treat. They're coming with some of the students that are involved with Buscade Soweto, and they're going to be in the house, and we're going to just be catching up and reflecting on Rosemary's life and contribution as well, particularly to, the informal music sector and everything that she's done with the Buscade movement. It's 1:15 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
Discover the new snack and save deals at Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Get 2+1 cheapest free on any bars, drinks, plus snacks. When you're in the mood for a comforting chocolate, or craving a collagen bar for a beauty boost, or even some biltong for the upcoming game, get to Dis-Chem for our snack and save combos. There's plenty to choose from, with something for everyone. Offers valid until 11 August. Excludes all advertised products. Dis-Chem Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
Your geyser would have hot water, but some people overloaded the transformer with their illegal connections. You're late again, and the robots don't work. Some people vandalized it for copper. The whole community doesn't have electricity because some people have been bridging meters for a small fee, and now the transformer has exploded due to overloading. Don't allow illegal connections by criminals to inconvenience you and your community. Report criminals to Eskom on 0800 11 2722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3, Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on the Full Circle.
Catching up with my first guest, the Penduring General Manager, Eben Kuhn, joins me now to reflect back on 29 years of the Penduring Awards, which is a space that, an awards that create a space for the freedom of expression through South African languages. Eben, how are you doing this afternoon?
Good in yourself, Bridget. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making the time to chat to us about the Penduring Awards. Just before we even get on reflecting over the last 29 years, let's get context for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with the Penduring Awards. It's just a brief history on the awards themselves.
Sure. So, Bridget, we know that more than 91% of South Africans speak a mother tongue other than English. And yet so much of our everyday communication, we've been forced to all speak in English to each other. So the Penduring exists and was formed to promote indigenous languages. When it was first started in the year after the advent of democracy, it was for Afrikaans advertising at first, and then it was transformed over time to represent all indigenous languages. So essentially, it started as an advertising award, but you may have noticed that the world of advertising has changed quite significantly today.
Yeah.
Today, people make podcasts, they make branded content, and the Penduring adjusted with those. So today, if you write a children's book in an indigenous language, you can enter that into the Penduring Awards. Or if you're part of a podcast series or a digital platform or a game or anything that really uses indigenous languages. And the Penduring really exists to promote the commercial use of indigenous languages in our everyday life.
So it's now evolved into something, something that reaches a whole variety of categories, from what I'm understanding, from essentially an advertisers award to now basically an award that recognizes content being created through various medium and platforms.
Absolutely. And Bridget, it's only with new media and new ways of thinking that we can build out our identities and heritage in South Africa. So we've got this incredible gift of language in South Africa. We've got quite a few of them as official language, even more if you count the non-official languages. But people often forget about their languages or think it's something that they must speak to their grandmother and don't use it creatively in new ways. And the Penduring really exists to encourage creativity and creative expression through content in indigenous languages.
Which I think even is an important part, right? Because we have these conversations, as you say, around the importance of mother tongues and indigenous languages, whatever folks may call them. And there's always as well sort of this recurring theme around we need more content. We need more written content in indigenous languages. Have you seen a shift over the last 29 years? And considering also your professional background and the various sectors that you engage with, have you seen a concerted shift where industry is now trying to be a bit more inclusive of languages to represent the dynamism of South Africans?
Look, I think you're more successful as a communicator if you can communicate with somebody in their home language. And I think marketers realize this. And we do see brands wanting to engage. We see global brands when they come to South Africa, they realize that they can speak to people's hearts in a better way if they engage in their mother tongues. So we do see a lot of innovation happening. We see a lot of new kind of ways of engaging with language. Last year, our prestigious Umpeta Award winner, Joe Public, was for Chicken Licken for a game. And it's exciting to see people or language craft entering into new categories and new mediums. And that's really where the growth is at, finding new ways to communicate.
Yeah. And tell me, has there been any influence that comes from platforms like TikTok, for instance, which a lot of people who are on the platform, I'm not, a lot of people that are on the platform always talk about how authentic it is and how representative it is. And I wonder if that's also influenced, in arenas like advertising and elsewhere, how they innovate and move around communication.
Absolutely. I think people play with language, and we often see those things starting in TikTok, and then brands realize that user-generated content is a great way of engaging. And so we see all the playful ways in which people engage with language on TikTok, and it's interesting to see how brands find ways to incorporate that into mainstream communication as well.
Yeah. Talk to us about, some of the highlights. 29 years is a long time. But also, I guess, just showing just how resilient and innovative these particular creative platforms and sectors are. But 29 years is a long time. A lot has obviously happened during the course of the Penduran's existence. And what have been some of the highlight moments for you guys as you reflect back on that time?
So for me, the most exciting thing, I mean, our agency, Brainstorm, took over the management of the Penduran 7 years ago. At that point, the idea of transforming it was in its infancy, and so we were really responsible for making it entirely inclusive so that it's about all of our indigenous languages. And I think that's where really the Penduran became particularly relevant as a nation-building tool, because speakers and developers in any one of the language actually share the same challenges of getting content out there, the financial the barriers and things like that in the publishing sector. So that was quite exciting when all the languages could get together. At that point, we also started talking and then launched 2 years ago the first indigenous language Imbizo, which happens 2 days before the awards ceremony for the Penduran Awards. And that's even broader than just the advertising and publishing and content. There we engage with everybody involved in the language ecosystem in South Africa. And that's open to the public to attend as well. I think other highlights for me personally, I mean, when I was a student, I won a Student Penduran Award with a group of students that I was working with, and that really enabled us to start our agency. And then many years later, we were asked to manage this awards program. So that's been quite exciting for us in a personal way as well.
Yeah, you've sparked my interest with the indigenous language Imbizo. What's unpacked or explored there over the 2 days?
So there we invite media owners, we invite publishers, we invite content creators to all come together and talk about the challenges and the innovations that happen in the sector in a broader way. SABC Radio has been a partner in the past. PanSALB, the Pan South African Language Board, has been a partner in the past. The Media Development and Diversity Agency is currently in negotiation about becoming a partner in this. So it really embraces the entire industry and sector. It's also part of the UN decade for indigenous languages. So the issue of indigenous language promotion is not unique to South Africa. We see around the world that a lot of languages die out every day, and therefore the United Nations have declared the current decade that we're in the decade of indigenous languages, where all over the world people are looking at ways to promote and innovate in indigenous languages, both the lexicons, both the documentation of those languages, as well as new ways to get people excited about speaking these languages and telling stories in them.
Interesting. There was a conversation, I'm sure you're aware of that series, powered by the Milk Stout, Black Conversations. And there was an episode that I caught just a few weeks ago where they were talking on what you've just touched on, indigenous languages being under threat. And it was quite interesting to hear the conversation from the perspective of with the experts on the panel coming from various disciplines. The flip side of the argument was, well, if societies and humans evolve, then surely even language and structure of languages, particularly indigenous languages was the topic, evolves with societies. And so does language ever die, or does it just become something else?
Yeah, it's a wonderful debate, and it's something that we've touched on in the past at the Indigenous Language Imbizo, where certain people kind of lobby for language purity. I know the SABC often struggle with this, where listeners will call it and say, but you're not speaking proper isiZulu. And it's true, language is a living thing. It evolves with people. Every year you can see new words entering different languages. That's not bastardization, that's growth in languages for me personally. There are obviously people on various sides of this debate, but it's an exciting thing to see languages grow as it passes from generation to generation. And as we have new ways of expression, I mean, you speak differently on TikTok than what you may have read the news in the past. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's also touch a little bit, I think it's one of the categories, you mentioned it just now, Umpeta, the Umpeta Award.
So the best of show, or the highest prize in the Penduran, is called the prestigious Umpeta Award.
Yes.
And it really is like, so you've got all the different categories, and all the overarching winners in those categories automatically get entered for one prize, the prestigious Umpeta Award.
Okay.
Similarly, Penduring is also very serious about student categories. So in parallel to our professional categories, we've got the student category. So there's an overall student winner, and then there's the prestigious Umpeta Award winner. Last year it was Joe Public. We've got a culture at Penduring where we ask the agency or the publisher that won the prestigious Umpeta Award to work on the campaign for the next year. So this year, Joe Public helped us with a campaign that it uses a lot of humor about direct translation, how things go missing in translation, and it encouraged people to say it in your language. If you go look at our social media, you're going to see some very delightful examples of the very clever work that the team at Joe Public came up with in playing in different languages and how things go awry when you try and translate them in English.
I mean, already from what you are teasing us with, it's sounding like it could be a very nice brand extension for Brand South Africa.
Absolutely. Please tell people to join from Brand South Africa. We'll definitely invite them.
Fabulous.
Touching on something, language is so close to our identity. There's no other carrier of our identity like there is language. I mean, people like Shoma Josie proves that, and we don't need to be ashamed of that. Like, the world actually loves it when we stand proud with our languages and dance and work with it in new ways. That is quite innovative.
Absolutely. And it definitely shows that sense of being South African. This conversation, as we wrap it up, making my mind just reflect on so many things where language was used correctly and the nuance of being South African was displayed in just the most exceptional way. There was a Santam ad also in this decade that played on South Africans meeting foreigners in cities like London and New York, and those South Africanisms in indigenous languages, making them stand out and having people go, "Oh, you from South Africa?" And it was just so heartwarming.
I'm happy you mentioned them because they're actually one of our new partners in the Penduring as well. They've come on board this year as a new sponsor, so that's great.
Lovely stuff. Look forward to seeing who comes out top of the cream there at the Penduring 2024 Awards. Thank you so much for your time today. That was Penduring General Manager Eben Kean, and of course the entries close on the 30th of September 2024. So if you tick the categories that they cater to, publishing houses, digital content creators, filmmakers, gaming, and other innovative indigenous language content, you can definitely go over to www.penduring.co.za and have a look at those entry requirements, and those entries closing on the 30th of September 2024. Modupi Makhalemele is standing by with your headline news.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. Good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, a police officer is in a stable condition after being wounded in an incident in which 3 suspects were killed during a shootout with the police in Umlazi Township in Durban. Limpopo Premier Phophi Ramathuba says government is working towards the eradication of pit latrines at schools. And mourners have gathered at a mosque in the Qatari capital Doha, where the Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh's funeral is underway. I'll be back with a full news update at 2.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversation. If you are just jumping into your car, it's just gone 1:30, and of course it is a Friday, so we take things nice and easy on a Friday. By the way, you can live stream us across our social media platforms at SAFM Radio. On social media is where you will find us if you want the visual appreciation of the show. Our next guest is Steve Smith, and Steve is the VC Magazine editor, and he's going to be hosting his Future Talks workshop, and core to the messaging is around themes of upcycling and sustainability in design, especially using South African success stories. Looking forward to what that holds, and that's why we've invited him on the show. How are you doing, Steve?
Hi, Bridget. I'm fine, and yourself?
I'm great, thank you. Can't complain. So we're gearing up. It's Decorex season this, we know. Decorex Cape Town, Joburg in full swing, I think this weekend, Joburg. And you are hosting a Future Talks workshop. Tell us a bit more about, what's on the table for this discussion.
This one really is focused around sustainable design. And it's looking at specifically at around how do we make the business of sustainability actually sustainable. So, I think at the moment, sustainability is really seen as something of a nice to have, or it's expensive, or, it's a corporate CSI project. But it's really investigating the fact that only once sustainable design becomes a commercial process and the stuff that we're producing is affordable, for example, does it really catch on and we reach that tipping point where we are actually designing in a way that's actually going to save the planet.
Yeah, and that's the irony of it, right? Because as you said it, one just went back to the conversations we've had with creatives, but also the things we've observed in different spaces. To your point that sustainability has been the buzzword for quite a while now in recent years, but it's two-pronged. It's either, as you say, a nice to have, or it's unaffordable for the vast majority of people, even those who might have an interest in using more sustainable, conscious ways and bringing that into their work and into their being.
Yeah, exactly. Especially within the South African context, we have much more immediate and pressing issues to deal with. Food sustainability being one, and housing. And so when it comes to sustainable design, that's probably something that's not a little further down the line. But the reality is, I think if we take a long-term view, design is one of the things that can help save our planet. That we live here, and we have to make that happen. So it's, we really want to get to the point where it's not so much the very cool designer bag that you have that's made out of recycled sails, which cost a few $1,000. That is sustainable, but that's not the answer. It's when we're buying a T-shirt, a stock standard white T-shirt, a basic, that's not coming from China, and it's affordable, and it's made here, and it's made in a sustainable way. That's when sustainable design starts to really work.
How do we get from where we are now? Because, for instance, if you talk to a few South African textile designers, high-end, middle of sort of the lane, as well as just fashion designers. If you talk to those who are playing in the space or who build themselves as sustainable designers and creatives, oftentimes when they talk sustainability, they talk about it from the perspective of the production methods that we use, right? And the sort of the hand skills and the things that require less by way of resource of manufacturing. But how do we get from that? Because that speaks to niche, it speaks to small volumes, small numbers, a very unique client, to getting to that point of the white T-shirt, mass production, mass client, huge volumes, but still using and deploying those sustainability tactics.
Yeah, and I think that's the really hard bit because, it's not like you don't know how to do it. And our small makers and fashion designers or interior or furniture designers know how to do it. We can design sustainable products, but it's very labor intense. For example, if you're making stuff out of discarded trash or plastic, you've got to sort, and you've got to, sort the plastic aside, sort the fabric aside, and then you've got to make your sustainable materials out of that. So you've got to refabricate stuff. So that's expensive, and that's what makes that process not cost effective, and the price point quite high. It's really when I think big business and corporates start getting involved, and you have economies of scale, as you've explained. So it's when we're able to apply those principles of a circular economy where we're not buying, using, disposing, but with that linear approach, but we're in a circular system where we're designing from the beginning with materials we know and can control the lifespan of that material, and it goes back into the system to be remade again. So you've got to design from the beginning. That's the first thing. The process needs to start with a design that understands the lifespan of that. And I think realistically, if you look at how it's worked internationally, there's been government incentive, and that kind of kickstarts the whole program. And we understand in South Africa that there are other ways to use government money that are much more immediate and pressing. So
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge we face in South Africa. So it's the private sector, I think, who really need to step up. And maybe it's a thing of legislation starts to penalize businesses more and more when they're not responsible for their waste.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the answer. So, this panel discussion really was one of the businesses we were talking to, and they're an established furniture manufacturing business. They're 40 years old. They support a lot of families. They employ a lot of people. They understand the responsibility of that. They're not sustainable after what they do, but they want to become more sustainable. So it's those kind of businesses. We're starting the conversation of how do you start to try and build more sustainable practices in your business and still be profitable, which is key for job creation in South Africa.
Absolutely. And I hear you saying, perhaps government intervention by way of subsidizing particular sectors, as well as putting in place the policies to penalize those who don't adhere. And I wonder, in the countries that have gotten it correct, because I'm sure you've got all the necessary information, in the countries that have gotten it correct, what have been some of the strategies that were used that involved the various stakeholders? I'm not well versed in the world of design, so I'm looking, my mind goes to very superficial things. And I think, for instance, we see a lot of like the more Scandinavian countries, right? But they are completely different societies that don't have the pressing needs that we have. And so they can focus on their global footprints in ways that maybe we can't. And that's probably then an unfair comparison.
Well, you're absolutely right, Bridget. That's how it has happened. So a recent example were two brothers who visited South Africa. They're a Dutch brand called Plank, Planq. And what they do is they make furniture out of recycled material. So they would, for example, get old KLM, the national airline carrier uniforms, and with their process, deconstruct the textiles, and through a process with a biodegradable glue, press it into a material that's made into very beautiful furniture. And KLM have brought them back. So within their headquarters, everybody sits on seats that are actually been made from their old materials.
Wow.
So it's a beautiful story, and the product is great. But what really made it happen was they were given incentives by the Dutch government. So I'm not exactly sure what the breakdown was. It might have been a tax incentive, or I'm not sure. But the fact is that it was supported by the government, and that's how it happened. And when we asked them, how did your business become successful? And they're a successful business. They're not an NGO.
Yeah.
They're a business who are making money. It's unequivocally clear it would not have happened without the kickstart with the government incentive.
And as we wrap it up, you used the phrase, perhaps it's about conscientizing ourselves to the buying, using, and disposing. And I wonder, does that speak also to, because a lot of power lies with consumers and people who engage industries and sectors. And if we start being conscious of this, the buying, using, and disposing, and we ourselves start making particular demands, that's another way of fast tracking the sort of the turnaround and then ensuring the sustainability of sustainable businesses.
You're absolutely right. And if you'd asked me that question 2 years ago, you would have had a sort of a despondent look on my face. I would have thought like we're so far away from that. But genuinely and honestly, and I can see through the feedback we get through from our readers at VC and from our design community, I can see there's a tipping point has happened where in the last couple of years there's been a real conscious move by, I think, a wider public, and it's growing, that we actually need to start thinking sustainably and be responsible for our own waste and buy more responsibly. So I have hope. I have hope in my heart. And we've seen it here at Decorex in the future talks we've been having.
Lovely stuff. Steve Smith, we appreciate the time with you today. Steve is VC Magazine editor, talking, of course, the business of sustainability. It's just gone 2 o'clock. It's time for us to have a quick break. We'll come back on the other side of this and get into stages, pages, screens, and more.
Everyone is just as important as you are. Stop gender-based violence. treat others the way you want to be treated. No one deserves any form of violence. Report gender-based violence. Contact Lifeline South Africa toll-free number on your mobile phone. Call or WhatsApp 0800 150 150. That's 0800 150 150. Lifeline South Africa. Mental and emotional health for all. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
So Sharon officing was telling me the way drip is so expensive these days. She's now waiting for her old clothes to come back into fashion. I say, Joza, while you're waiting, why not let your money do the things in a Nedbank Just Invest account where you can get your money after 24 hours notice? Oganchani, voiceman.
In Jalo, Mabel, you can earn up to 8.75% interest. Anyone can open an investment account via the Money app in under 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. Promo rates apply.
Explore the family drama and legacy of one of the most powerful royal families in South Africa, the Mukwebos. This is Mubango, 30 Years of Democracy, Season 1 and Season 2. See how it all began, from when a king suddenly dies, leaving behind 2 wives, one from a customary marriage and the other from a civil union, coming full circle to the coronation of one of his sons. Mubango Season 1 and Season 2, Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. on SABC2. You belong.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
So, happening at the Joburg Theatre, they are presenting the upcoming rendition of Oliana, which of course was penned by a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright and directed by James Ngobo. We've got joining me now Altavise Lawrence, who plays the role of Carol, the student in the play. How are you doing this afternoon, Altavise?
Hey, Bridget, how are you doing?
I'm awesome, milady. Can't complain at all. Give us some context and some background on this play, Oliana.
So Oliana, as you have just said, was written by such a beast of a writer, David Mamet. And I think when you are like an arts graduate or theatre kid, you know how much it means or how much weight it carries to do a play of this nature and actually of this weight. And it is an award-winning play that tackles so many issues, a plethora of issues regarding power dynamics, gender, equality. When we talk about, hierarchy from a teacher and a student perspective, when it comes to sexual innuendos and how certain things can be misconstrued, accusations, and the weight that carries in society.
Mm-hmm. I mean, very interesting from the synopsis that this play speaks directly to some of the issues and the themes that we see playing out within our communities and in our school campuses.
100%. This play was written in 1992, if I'm not mistaken. And I mean, how many years later are we now? And it still applies. It's still relevant. I think now more than ever, when we look at movements such as the Me Too movement, when we look at the femicide, the rate at which women are being killed in South Africa, and say her name, not in her name. And I think for me, one thing that feels very vivid was when Uyimene was murdered. And the outrage that it sparked across South Africa when women were saying, this is enough, we can't do this anymore. And the fact that it could exist in 1992 and carry the same fire, if not even burning hotter, in 2024 speaks volumes.
And pieces like this, they do a lot by way of holding a mirror up to society and also just pressing the importance of us confronting perhaps those very uncomfortable truths of who we are.
And it's also the conversation of perpetrator and victim. Who has the right to be a victim? Does the victim have the right to say, you have hurt me? And when the perpetrator says, but I didn't mean it that way, which side do you choose? Who do you say is right and who do you believe?
Let me ask you, as a woman in South Africa taking on a play of this magnitude, as you've said, and obviously inhibiting the words by David Mamet, what sort of journey does this take you through, both as a theatre practitioner as well as a young Black woman in contemporary South Africa, confronted with these very threats and these very themes in your day-to-day existence?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that from the time that we started this rehearsal, the question that you've just asked is the question that we threw in the rehearsal room. And saying, hey, Altovise, how are you going to find the truth in this piece? Because if anything, I need to play this character honestly. And I don't think there is a woman in South Africa that can say that they haven't been, whether it be sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, and even verbally, physically. There's no one, I think, that can say that it hasn't happened to them. Something as small as being catcalled in the street, that is not something that you choose when you walk out of the door. And we can try to be modest in our clothing, in our speech, in our appearance, but unfortunately it finds us. So I don't think I had to go deep and become like a method actor and suddenly go out into Joburg CBD and want certain things to happen for me to be able to tell the story honestly, because it is our lived experience, our day-to-day living experience. And I think the only difference between us and the woman who didn't make it is that we're still here to tell the story.
This is, of course, a double-hander, and you are on stage with yet another brilliant performer. Yes. Must be an interesting experience, because from what I've seen, he definitely would be fitted for a role that pushes certain boundaries, but also with a sense of sensitivity. There's a way in which he inhibits these characters that are uncomfortable.
And I think that is, you've just said it perfectly. Like, we are so accustomed seeing Muthusi playing what some people call the creepy guy, the uncomfortable guy. But seeing him, I think, not on TV is a very different experience. And I think people know that when you are doing film and TV, you are able to say, pause, cut, take two. How's about you do it this way? Yeah. But once you hit that stage, there is no pause button. And we need to play it from start to finish as you feel it. And, if someone makes a mistake, you pick it up. But I think I'm so fortunate to be playing this two-hander with Muthusi. It's someone that loves what he does first and foremost. Also, it has deep respect for art, and you see that come across in the way that he has created this character and how he presents this character, and also how we share the stage.
Yeah, I appreciate the time with you. That was Altovise Lawrence, and she plays the role of Carol in this upcoming production, Oliano. It's being staged at the Joburg Theatre. It opens on the 4th, and it's running until the 25th of August. And of course, you can head on over to the Joburg Theatre's website in order for you to get ticketing information. It's time for us to get into Kids Corner.
Mzansi Africa's beautiful game is back. Reigning champions Ezimnyama Ngenkani want to do it again, but they must conquer their battle against Gavin Hunt and his troops. However, Matsatsansa Bidori have a massive plan to march to the semi-final. This is the MTN 8 quarter-final. Wafa Wafa. Orlando Pirates versus SuperSport United. This Saturday, 3 August at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
The Serengeti, located on the northern part of Tanzania, bordering Kenya on the north and Ngorongoro in the south. Home to the African Big Five and millions of zebras, birds and other predators. Serengeti 2 returns to the unspoiled corner of the Serengeti for more animal drama. There's humor, heartbreak, and nail-biting tension as new characters move in and familiar faces continue their stories. Channel your inner adventurer with Serengeti 2, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
friends, and welcome to Nali Bali. How was your day today? I hope you had a great day at school. Don't forget to write your homework. But here's a story to refresh your mind from your busy day at school. Today's story is called Matty and the Magical Apple Tree, written by Bradley Pals. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and dance! There was once a young woman named Matty. She lived on a small farm where the soil was hard and work was tough. With determination, she toiled under the hot sun to grow enough vegetable to sell at the bustling market nearby. When her crops were ready, and she had more than enough to spare, Matty packed a basket and headed to the market, her cheeks glowing with excitement.
Today, I will sell all these vegetables and maybe get a treat for myself,
she thought. You see, Matty's favorite treat awaited her at the market. It was apples. Big, juicy, delicious apples. She couldn't resist their tempting sweetness. They were her reward for all her hard work. At the fruit stall, Matty met a friendly old lady whose cheeks were as rosy as ripe apples. Her eyes twinkled as she watched Matty admire the colorful fruit. Matty's thoughts danced around as she pondered which apples to buy for the next baking adventure.
Red apples, delicious for a cake,
Matty said aloud as she picked up the red apple.
And maybe some Granny Smith apples for a pie, and a few Honeycrisp apples for muffins. And definitely some golden delicious apples for a warm apple crumble.
As she named each apple, Matty added them to her basket. The old lady chuckled. She reached out and handed Matty a golden apple.
Anyone who loves apples this much deserves a special treat. Here you go. Take this special apple. It will always bring you joy.
The old lady said.
Thank you very much,
Matty said gratefully. The golden apple was bigger and more beautiful than the other apples she had. She couldn't wait to get home and try it. As the sun dipped behind the hills, Matty returned to her farm. She carefully sorted and cleaned all the apples, humming happily as she worked. She would bake all the delicious treats she had thought of, but she saved the special golden apple as a treat to eat. Once Matty had sorted and cleaned all the apples, she picked up the special golden apple.
Now for my treat,
Matty said. But as she was about to take a bite, a tiny head poked out of a hole in the apple.
Hey, don't eat me!
A little voice squeaked. Matty dropped the apple in surprise.
What in the world?
Matty gasped. The worm wrinkled out, his eyes wide and apologetic.
Oh, I'm sorry for nibbling your apple, but it was so tasty.
The worm said. Matty couldn't decide if she should be angry or not. The old lady had said the apple would always bring her joy, but now she wasn't sure. Eventually Matty sighed and said,
Little worm, you are so lucky that I'm in a good mood today. Let me bury your apple in my backyard so that you can eat it in peace, away from the birds.
As Mattie placed the apple in the hole she had made in the ground, the worm said,
"Goodbye, Mattie. I promise to repay you for your kindness."
Mattie waved goodbye and returned to her baking. The next morning, as the first rays of the sun painted the sky, Mattie's eyes opened to the sweetest scent she had ever smelled. She rushed outside and her jaw dropped in astonishment. Right before her eyes stood a gigantic apple tree, its branches heavy with the most magnificent apples that she has ever seen. Mattie danced around the tree, her laughter mingling with the songs of the birds. She picked the apples one by one, marveling at the miracle that had taken place overnight. That evening, Mattie returned to the tree, placing a freshly baked muffin at its roots.
Thank you very much. The old lady was right after all, because this tree will indeed always bring me joy,
she whispered. And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called Mattie and the Magical Apple Tree, written by Bradley Pauls. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha.
The top stories at 2 o'clock. A police officer in hospital following a Durban shootout, and the murder trial of a German tourist is postponed. A very good afternoon. A police officer is in a stable condition after being wounded in an incident in which 3 suspects were killed during a shootout with the police in Umlazi Township in Durban. Police say the suspects had hijacked a woman's vehicle in the area. Spokesperson Robert Netsiunda.
A police officer is in a stable condition after he was shot at by suspects during a shootout, which left 3 suspected hijackers fatally wounded at T section in Umlazi earlier today. The suspects had just hijacked a woman of a vehicle at R section in Umlazi, and police responded swiftly. The suspects opened fire towards the police, and in self-defense, a shootout ensued. 3 suspects were shot and fatally wounded in the shootout. A police officer was shot in the arm and is in a stable condition. The suspects were found in possession of 3 firearms as well as the hijacked vehicle. The hijacked victim was not harmed.
Limpopo Premier Popi Ramathuba says the government is working towards the eradication of pit toilets at schools. She was delivering her maiden address during the opening of the provincial legislature in Polokwane. Ramathuba says all schools currently using pit toilets will be provided with proper sanitation.
All schools currently using pit latrines will be provided with appropriate sanitation facilities within the reasonable and acceptable period of time. We have since directed the MEC for Education, Honorable Mabungu Durudi Ramakanya, to give us a comprehensive report on the remaining schools whose sanitation facility still to be completed. We can't compromise on pit latrines. We have to eradicate them in their entirety.
The Mpumalanga High Court in Mbombela has once again postponed the German tourist murder trial. This after the fourth state witness, Captain Michael Lusiba, reported ill. 3 people are facing charges of murder, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit crime, and illegal firearm and ammunition charges. They allegedly shot and killed Jorg Snar on the Numbi Road while he was on his way to the Kruger National Park. Judge Brian Mashide postponed the trial to next week.
Once again, we are unable to proceed today. I understand the other witnesses were excused. Secondly, Captain Lusiba went to a doctor yesterday and he has been excused until Monday. So this matter is stood down until Wednesday, the 7th of August 2024.
Marumo Gallants Football Club has officially announced its relocation to Bloemfontein in the Free State. It will play its 2024-25 PSL games in the city. The club will use the Free State and Dr. Petros Rantlai Molemela stadiums for both its official games. The selling of the status of Bloemfontein Celtic in 2021 to Royal AM led to the demise of football in that province. Speaking at the launch, the club's president, Dr. Abram Solo, said residents of Mangaung have welcomed Marumo Gallants.
We have been engaged with the city residents for a while now. We need football in this area, and then we said we are available to can come and bring happiness, harmony, and then to unite the communities, that we can unite our society and communities to keep them busy, taking everybody out of the run things from the street. The main thing is to make sure that we come to develop football, and we say here we are as a PSL club, and we say we are going to be with you and permanently.
And mourners have gathered at a mosque in the Qatari capital Doha, where the Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh's funeral is underway. He was assassinated in Iran on Wednesday. The BBC's Sebastian Asha has more.
Amid heavy security, hundreds of people attended funeral prayers in the State Mosque in Qatar, the Gulf state where Ismail Haniyeh lived in exile for the past few years. Among the dignitaries attending the funeral is a high-level delegation from the other main Palestinian political faction, Fatah. Hamas has called for a day of rage to mark the burial of its political leader. Israel remains on high alert, with many airlines having suspended flights to the country as the region awaits the response to Haniyeh's killing that both Hamas and Iran have promised.
The top story, a police officer is in a stable condition after being wounded in an incident in which 3 suspects were killed during a shootout with the police in Umlazi Township in Durban. The full circle continues. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
EFC is live this Thursday.
Former middleweight champion Luke Michael, determined to regain his title, must do battle with undefeated CIT powerhouse Jocko Duplessis for the vacant middleweight championship in the truly sensational main event live from the World Sports Betting Arena, EFC 116. This Thursday, watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Brava, because isn't that what they say when you're out at the auditoriums and it's a bravi.
Oh, well, there are more guys than girls, I think.
Oh, I did not know. We learn every day.
Well, I'm probably wrong.
No, you know better than me. It is the voice of Rosemary Nolden, who is the founder of Busk Aid and director of the Busk Aid Soweto String Project, who've just, taken us into the second hour of the show. Well done, guys. Very well done. Quite a talented bunch here. And we've got 5 musicians joining us, and Rosemary will tell us the ensemble as to who's who and what they play. We've also got Sonia Bass, who is an administrator at Busk Aid, and a cellist. Is it a cellist? The celloist? The cellist?
No, I play the...
Swing the mic too.
I'm swinging the mic. I play the cello, and I teach the cello and the double bass. Oh. And I repairs instruments, and sort of Rosemary's right hand.
Yes.
And wear many hats on many days.
I love that, though. A multifaceted woman.
I try.
These are things we love.
Unbelievable.
Right?
She can do anything.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like it. From playing to teaching to fixing to just making sure everything runs smoothly. And of course, we are quite thrilled to have you guys join us on the show today. It is a lovely treat indeed. This show can take you all over the place, as I'm sure your work with Busk Aid has done for you, Rosemary. Firstly, should I be saying happy 80th birthday year?
Thank you very much. I thought you were going to say it's happy 80th and a half.
80th and a half?
Yes.
I love
On the way to 81.
On the way. Let's talk about Busk Aid. I mean, when you founded Busk Aid, it was 1997.
Yeah.
How did all of this come about?
Oh, dear. I've got 2 minutes, haven't I?
No, you've got time.
I heard something on the radio. So radio is very important in my life.
Okay.
Quite randomly, and it was the sound of music coming from Deep Kloof in Soweto in 1991. 1991. And I was fascinated, and I got together a few friends of mine, and we went out and we busked in railway stations in Britain.
Yes.
Then I brought the money out here, well, in the form of instruments and music and so forth. And I visited the project, and the project was in a very rundown hall. It was actually in a toilet in the Deep Kloof Hall, and which was a bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah.
With the big squatter camp next door, and I came backwards and forwards, and that project unfortunately sort of fell apart, and the kids who I was helping to teach whenever I went across begged me to go back. So I said, okay. I had a little bit of shortage of work because I was a professional viola player. So I said, I'll come back for a year. And that was in 1997, and we are now in 2024.
Because it was meant to be.
I just forgot to go home.
Well, listen, we are all the better for it that you are here. And I can imagine back then, and I'm assuming, early 90s, you come over. There was no intention, I'm presuming, English born and bred.
Yeah, no intention.
No intention for you to
connection,
set
nothing.
roots here.
Yeah, no.
And then your heart just found itself finding a second home.
I fell in love with the children.
Yes.
And the children were so motivated and so talented. And in those days, it was a much poorer community generally. And it was a very volatile community, actually.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the second time I came out I was here within a few days of Chris Hani being murdered. So I couldn't go into Soweto. I mean, that was what it was like in those days.
Yeah.
And I was taken by a journalist to look at the palaces in Santon, and then he took me straight into Alexander. And, I mean, to show me what it was like, what this country was, and in some ways.
Yes, it still is.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid to say it.
Well,
still is. We
it
speak the
still
truth
is,
around
yes,
here.
yeah.
And then, what was that like, by the way? A young English woman, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with talent, and coming into this volatile, tense South African community and communities, essentially to be a part of it. Were you welcomed? Were you met with some animosity from some corners? What was that experience like?
Well, not animosity, not that I was aware of. I mean, what happened when I wasn't that young, by the way. I was in my 50s. When I very first went down to Deep Kloof, the children came from the squatter camp, and I just was sort of bombed by all these children. I don't think they'd ever seen a white person before, or if they had, they probably hadn't seen a middle-aged English woman. And then I was taken through that squatter camp, and I can tell you it was some place, actually. And I think I felt as though I'd gone into another world. It was like Alice in Wonderland, really.
Yeah.
But one thing about being somewhere consistently for a long time is you don't actually see the changes. You sort of absorb the changes.
Yes.
But if I look back, I mean, the difference is so stark. I mean, I have a whole flood of stories I could tell you. Like, just one,
Yes.
when the mother of one of our students who was still at school disappeared. And what happened then, and there were only about 15 students in those days, was that one of the fathers, who was a neighbour, came to me because I was the only other person with a car. And we both had run-down cars. And he said this woman had disappeared, and she'd gone to Barra and hadn't come home. Sure. And what had happened was she'd gone in for a gynecological problem.
Yeah.
She'd given money to somebody to phone home. And they'd kept the money and not phoned home.
Oh, no.
And I found myself at the Baragwanath mortuary.
Looking.
I fortunately didn't go, but and 2 days later she turned up.
Wow.
And those sorts of things were a little bit weird.
I can imagine.
Yes. But then there are a lot of weird things now, aren't there?
Absolutely. I also think it speaks to how the community probably, took you as one of their own, like, you know, because here we are, we're in crisis, a family crisis, a community crisis, and Rosemary is around. So let's lean on Rosemary as well for some help. I love that. It's a testament, Rosemary. It's a testament to how you've impacted the community. Sonia, then let's fast forward a couple of years from 1997 and Rosemary's thrilling adventures in Soweto. When do you enter the Buscade family?
Well, not too long after 97. I was towards the end of 1999. I found myself meeting Rosemary. Actually, we had met many, many years earlier in Durban when I was still a student at the university there. And I had no idea of this woman's greatness at that time. I really didn't. It didn't sort of, I didn't. And then in 1999, I was approached by someone who was actually teaching the cello at Buscade, a sort of friend of mine, colleague of mine. And he said that Rosemary was looking for an administrator. And I was a freelance musician at that stage. And I was getting a bit sick and tired of getting on aeroplanes and flying down to Durban and back and never quite being settled. And so I phoned Rosemary up and said, you know, you need some help. I think that's how it happened. I can't quite remember. Anyway, the long and the short of it is that I started working for Rosemary in the office at first. Sorry, excuse me. And then I started studying her teaching methods and learning the method of teaching and gradually getting more and more involved, and took on the cello teaching and the bass teaching and then instrument repairing and so it's gone on. And, you know, I think it's 25 years now for me.
Wow.
And it's just been the most incredible journey.
Wow.
You know, alongside Rosemary with her enormous skills and talent and drive and passion and all these things. It's just been amazing.
I'm going to seize the microphone
Yes.
because I tell you something, and this is not just one person flattering another.
Yes.
If Sonia hadn't come along and nobody else had come along and nobody else ever has come along, we would not still be in existence. We're a sort of miracle couple. We're a very strange couple,
right?
But
it works.
It works.
It works.
It works. It's amazing.
And look at you all these years later. I mean, you've gone on to perform in over 26 countries?
We've toured 26 times.
26
because we've been
times.
to some countries
More than
multiple
once.
times.
Yes.
Yes.
And you guys are actually recognized as, and I want to get this correct, the world's 10 most inspirational orchestras. I mean, that's no easy feat.
That was quite a long time ago, but it happened, and it was
Rosemary,
pretty
you're too
amazing,
modest.
actually.
You must take your flowers while you can smell them.
Well, I've still got my sense of smell. But we had just played in the BBC Proms, and I don't think any other... I'm not sure, but I don't think any other African orchestra, certainly no South African orchestra, has ever been near the Albert Hall to perform. So that was a very big event in our lives. And then we went to Syria. A year later, Syria was in pieces.
Yeah.
We've been to New Zealand. Where else have we been? Am I allowed to
Colombia?
ask them? Yes, Colombia, Brazil.
Oh, you guys have done some touring as well as part of this ensemble.
They're the tourists.
I mean, you're too young. When did you guys join this ensemble? Let's have my lady here on mic too. Come a little closer. Well, when did you join the ensemble?
I think I was 9.5.
You were 9.5?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to ask how old you are now.
It's fine.
Okay, how old are you now?
Now I'm 34.
Really? And what is it about, the Buscade Soweto string ensemble that just... firstly, that had you gravitating towards it and that you love so much?
I mean, it starts off with the dream, seeing this instrument or the kind of music on TV or hearing it on radio.
Yeah.
And then it starts becoming a hearsay that there's a music school around the corner. If you want to come join, you can come. Who wouldn't want to?
Yes.
And then it starts off as a hobby, passion, career. And here we are today.
And here you are today. and very demanding, this world, right? This little gentleman looks like you're still in high school. Come closer. Actually, go to that mic 4. They'll switch on this one for you.
Which
Mike
one's
for?
still in high school?
He looks like he's still in high school.
still in high school.
Yeah.
He is.
I can see the braces and everything. You're giving me grade 10.
Yeah, probably.
You in grade 10?
Yeah, I am.
Is it? How old are you? 16?
Yeah, I'm 16.
When did you start?
About 8. When I was 8, yeah.
About 8.
Yeah.
Really? Wow. At 8 years old, what makes you think I want to be part of the orchestra?
Well, I was not sure what I wanted because, yeah. But sooner I realized that, okay, there's basket, it's in our community. My granny actually introduced it to me.
Don't we love grannies?
Yeah, and then I love the instrument.
Yeah. And what is that a violin?
Yes, it's a violin.
It's a violin. Okay. And I know these instruments are very important. Is the aim to play is it a Stradivarius? Is that better?
That would be nice.
We need a couple 100,000.
Oh.
Millions.
What are you talking? Dollars? They're in millions now.
Millions.
Dollars.
Yeah.
By the way, not
Wow.
rand. But I'm just going to say that Unati started with Kia Betsway because we train, all our teachers are trained in-house. And everybody in this room is a teacher.
Oh, really?
So, including Unati.
Including you at grade 10?
Yeah, I kind of assist.
Oh, okay.
So then I took him over, as it were, and that's what we do quite often, actually. So it's we've got some pretty good teachers sitting here.
From what I heard, you've got some of the best. Talk to us about it, and maybe I'll let Sonia, because you're probably the one that deals with the nitty-gritties of keeping all of this going, sustained. How do we go about raising the necessary funds and finances to keep Basket going? Because a lot of the kids that come to you guys, have never interacted with instruments, don't own instruments. All this is on you. How do you manage that?
Well, it really is a team effort, and it's a lot of hard work, applying for funding with various corporates and government places like the NAC, the lottery, but it's very time consuming. Rosemary and I do it together. Rosemary's a fantastic writer, and so I try and put things together for her, and then she waves her magic wand over it all, and then it all makes sense. And but it is very time consuming, and it's pretty difficult, and we struggle. We're not in a brilliant place at the moment, because it's just difficult for NGOs such as ours to get funding. And we lost a big corporate sponsor, so we're trying to recover those funds. But the Busgate miracle goes much bigger than just teaching these wonderful children and into young adults and performers, because somehow we always find a way.
Absolutely.
We always manage to land on our feet. And it's just dedication, perseverance, hard work, and eventually we get there in the end.
Yeah. You know what, as you talk about the loss of a big corporate sponsor, I'm going to whisper in the seconds during Madupi's headline news, maybe there might be a link, because you guys have a lot of interesting stories to tell. And I know right now they focused very much on Your Story Matters. And the engine behind them in their marketing really is a believer in arts and culture. So I'm going to see if maybe there can be a connection. Don't worry, I won't take a commission. I'll just take a lifetime of tickets if it works out.
We shall pin you down.
No, trust me. Trust me.
Is there a moment to say one of the ways in which we raise funds is by giving concerts? And there's one coming up.
That's exactly what we're segueing into. But can't speak on the concert, because the concert in part is celebrating your 80th birthday.
That is true.
Yeah, so you just have to sit there and blush and look pretty while Sonia tells us all about the concert.
And eat the cake.
And eat the cake. So Sonia, you've got a concert coming up. What's on the cards?
It's on the 17th of August at 3:00 Saturday afternoon. Great time for a concert at the Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Braamfontein. It's the most beautiful space, beautiful acoustic to play in. We're doing a wide variety of music. We're playing some. Well, you heard the Biba Battalion or sections of it. With the full orchestra, we're doing some Gershwin. We're doing. Oh, goodness me, now I'm going blank. Rosemary's the music director, she knows.
Well, this is very interesting because just, recently, within the last decade, I suppose, black composers are being recognised, played. So actually we're playing the music of two black composers.
Oh, lovely.
One is pretty old now. He's about 350 years old. No, he's 250 years old, sorry. But the other is a lady. Her name was Florence Price. It's a very touching piece of music. It's got a little bit of spiritual about it. And, reading her history, it's very much reflected in what happened in this country. She was very talented. She was female and all these things. And she had to fight. And she's really only now being recognised. So we're quite proud. It's Women's Month.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like it. Ladies and gents, it was such a pleasure having you all in studio. You know what we're going to do? Okay, so that concert, 17th August, Holy Trinity Catholic Church. If you're listening out here in Joburg, in Brom, it's going to be a spectacular event with a full orchestra, the Buscade Soweto String Ensemble, all going to be there, celebrating Rosemary Nalden's 80th and a half birthday. And of course, Sonia Bass. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming through into studio. You guys are going to play us into our headline news. So we'll give you like a 5-second countdown. All right? As they all sort of take up position. There we go. And at your cue. And that was Buscade Soweto's String Ensemble, and that concert is on the 17th of August. It's time now to get into the headline news with Madupi Makhalemele.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. Good afternoon. In your headlines at 2:30, analysts say the remarks made by DA Federal Council Chair Helen Zille at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation have the potential to create unnecessary instability in the GNU. Gauteng Health has reported a 7.4% decrease in mothers that are breastfeeding within 6 months of their children's birth. And Kenyan Airways has launched a special package for East African citizens who are traveling between South Africa and East Africa. Details of these and other stories coming up 3 o'clock.
Okay, so what do we have here? A new dub telenovela on S3? The last one was absolutely amazing, so let's see what this one's about. Paloma, a seamstress and single mother, receives the wrong test results and finds out that she only has 6 months to live. interesting. She decides to live her best life and do things that she never had the courage to do. Understandable. Paloma unexpectedly finds love from a stranger she slept with. I see. She finds out that she received the wrong results and decides to meet the man who actually has 6 months to live? Wait, what? And right there, I know I'm hooked. Channel your inner drama with Bomb Successful, A Life Worth Living. Weekdays at 4:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Mzansi Africa's beautiful game is back. Reigning champions Ezimnyama Ngenkani want to do it again, but they must conquer their battle against Gavin Hunt and his troops. However, Matsatsansa Pitori have a massive plan to march to the semi-final. This is the MTN 8 quarter-final. Wafa Wafa. Orlando Pirates versus SuperSport United. This Saturday, 3 August at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. You are listening to The Full Circle.
When poor people commit themselves in politics, they don't commit themselves in politics to marry ideas. Not ideas, not ideology. You can't eat. We join politics because we have problems that we want to solve. Not ideas, not ideology. People who call themselves liberators, they spend their time on educating the poor, opening our eyes to see the poverty. No, as the see the poverty. I can't eat ideas. If you really want to liberate me, lead me into action.
All right, as we get into the second half of the show, the second half of this hour, and we are chatting to award-winning actor, writer, and director, and theatre maker and performance artist, Ukondiswa James joins us now. And we are into stages, pages, screens, and more. There's a lot of moving parts today. A lot of moving parts. Stages, pages, screens, and more.
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
It is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. And joining me in studio is award-winning actor, director, and theatre maker, Qondiswa, James, there's so many moving parts. If we are streaming, you are definitely catching us. You are definitely catching us in the middle of so many things. So many things. Qondiswa, how are you? I apologize. There's so much happening today.
I'm actually happy to be here. I feel like I'm a part of it. I feel part of the energy somehow. It's great.
Oh my God. Listen, we are having, normally on Fridays, it's siyakekeleza. But today, because we had the orchestra and they had to come in and then we had to swing cameras. So it was a whole situation.
And they're a band, hey? They're like a couple of them.
A full-on band. And even now I'm looking at you through the tiniest little window screen. Are you good though?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming through. We appreciate it. Tell us about the song that we just
heard. I'd love to.
Yes.
So I've got this collaborator. His name is Yanu Okama. He works out of Cape Town, and I've been working with him for like years. So when I first was dreaming of Amaxeleku and the Market Theatre told me they were interested in producing it, I just knew that the kind of story that it was fit very well with his language of composition. And it's as well as beats, as well as one of the characters in the show. So it's the sound that introduces him, it's the sound that becomes his motif. Yeah. But what I also really love about the song is the political intentionality and who we hear in the song talking about the lives of black folk in the country and stomach politics and how we take hold of our own lives is Ulindo Kuhle, who was an Abahlali Basem Jondolo comrade who was killed in 2022. So it becomes this really interesting fusion of like a jazz mix, right? Yeah. Which has got a little bit of romance or sensuality, at least for me, but then layered on top is this quite like visceral, straightforward political message, which is kind of the play as well. This balance between the politics that the play wants to deal with and also just the romance and just the fact of life and connection. Right. So that composition is Yanu Okama's. He's an amazing composer. If anyone is listening, guys, Yanu Okama from Cape Town, hit him up.
Well, listen, one thing is undeniable, that when it comes to your work, obviously there's a huge enthusiasm for it, but also everything from what you hear, from what I'm sort of hearing you say, there's a consciousness and a deliberate focus on the kind of themes that you explore and probably the reasoning why you decide to focus on certain things.
So the story itself came out of an experience that I had at the tail end of the student movements. Yeah. So 2017, 2018. And I was quite involved politically. And in the middle of all that mess, I met somebody who seemed like a political mentor as well at that particular time, at least the kind of activism that I was interested in and getting into. Yeah. And simultaneously, in the activist space, in the queer space, so I just moved to Joburg last year, but I was in Cape Town for a very long time. And in those spaces, academic spaces, etc., people started to explore polyamory. And I'd been polyamorous for a while, but suddenly now it's in our political space and it's something that we're thinking about when we're thinking about how to love each other, how to be with each other. And I meet this person who blows my mind, and also he's got this political sensibility. I feel like, wow, this person is going to teach me things. And then in the relation, I won't say relationship, situationship. In the situation, I come across then not just our political encounter and the places that he's inviting me to in terms of like activist spaces, but I have to consider myself and us in the context of Black love and our humanity, and sometimes the way that we treat each other, and sometimes the way that we make room for each other. My actress was asking me, like, at the core of this, her name's Shalima Mkongi, she was asking me, what do you think is at the core of this? And I said, for me, and also in relation to all politics, at least when I think through politics, it's about being human with each other. So that for me is the central exploration, the central thematic. How do we become more human with each other? How do we make room for others to show us their humanity and to develop together in humanity? How do we find safer spaces and allow ourselves to be vulnerable to allow people to witness us becoming more human? And this is definitely on the level of love, but also on the level of family, on the level of nation, on the level of being together in community. So these are the things that are really important to me. I'm always interested in politics, but always taking a case study, humanity, something quite specific, something quite domestic, people falling in love, and then extrapolating that and seeing what can it tell us about blackness, what can it tell us about gender, how can we use this to talk about class.
And I think, from what I sort of hear and the way I am understanding also, it's the sort of the breaking down of themes that might overwhelm, because when people talk about the sense of belonging, it can get academic, and the sense of being, it can get academic. But here you are compartmentalizing it within lived experiences of identity, of love, of relation, of things that really just take it down to the fundamentals of human interaction.
Exactly. And for me, the thing is important. It's not like I don't value the academic space and the theoretical space. I actually am also in that space. And if people come and see the play, you'll see that there's quite a lot of that intellectual sparring between these two people who are both, very smart and enjoy, showcasing it to each other, peacocking to each other. And just that sparring, when you meet someone that you feel can be your intellectual equal. So there's definitely that. And we definitely explore concepts, philosophical concepts, and we explore them fully. We talk about the origins of the universe, one part of the origins of the universe. We talk about class struggle and Marxism and anarcho-communism. So there's definitely that, but that's at, say, the highest point of the political conversation. And then there's the poetics of it as well, which, yes, the words are saying something and you can listen to the words, but sometimes it's about a cadence. Sometimes it's about finding a word that connects with you, that makes you feel something. In considering poetics. And then there's definitely the language. I've been saying to them, you can casualize more, right? Which is just the everyday speak, the things we speak about when we're chilling at the bar, having drinks with our friends, and we're talking about, Yazi, somebody messed me up just now, right? Are these the things that are happening in your guys' relationships? Should we do something? Is this a feminist issue? Things like that. But speaking about that quite relationally, like, there was a person this time that did this thing, as opposed to that intellectual academic speak. But it's there. It's all there. And I hope that it's married in such a way that people can follow it and that people can lean into it, not just follow it, but like really open themselves to the interrogation that is happening and hopefully take it out beyond and continue the conversations in their private spaces as well.
Absolutely. Listen, if you're wondering who is this impassioned person today?
So impassioned.
It is Kondiswa James, and she's Kondiswa, I didn't even ask in terms of gender identities. I'm just going with feminine today. My apologies.
She or they is fine, don't worry.
An award-winning actor, writer, director, theatre maker, and of course a performance artist, as you can tell from the voice. Because there was so much happening in our first 5 minutes that I feel as if I'm catching up to our conversation. Amaxaleko, when you speak about, words, for instance, it's a word that I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners are familiar with. Unpack it for us.
Sure. So amaxaleko is a Xhosa word, and it's a Xhosa word that's kind of difficult to directly translate. If I try to explain it, I would say something like, when somebody says you're filthy, like you live like a pig. Kind of a thing. So that's what it is. The idea of being filthy, of being messy. And the translation that we've chosen is messy people.
Like Unugu. The Zulu
word. It's that very rough one.
Yes.
When you're saying that thing. Filthy, dirty. You don't know how to clean up after yourself. It's something that my mother and my grandmother and when I was growing up would say to me. So it's something that's stuck. And especially then, because one of the things that the play discusses is the politics of middle classness and having people come into our space to clean for us and those relationships and that humanity. So it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Ubize umntu, to the point where you pay somebody to come and clean for you, type of thing. So that's one of the aspects of the filth, of the mess. But the second aspect is about the entanglements and the relationships.
Yes.
And I mean, we've touched a little about the fact that the story is about a polyamorous couple, a short-lived relationship of a polyamorous couple. But speaking through those entanglements and the mess. I mean, polyamory is a mess, definitely, but also monogamy is a mess. Us trying to love each other, us trying to be with each other, us trying to be honest with each other. Sometimes we can't. And some of the questions that I'm trying to ask is that, is there something about the shared language that we have cultivated as South Africans. And I am black, and I move in particular spaces.
Yeah.
So I will be specific as black South Africans, right? And when we think about our homes, the language that we use to talk to each other in love, the practices, right, of cheating, infidelity, all of that stuff,
Yeah.
the lying, all of that stuff. So the mess and the way that we hurt each other, and that hurt is also messy. And it was important also that the title was isiXhosa for me, because the play is multilingual.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of isiXhosa, but there's a lot of English, and it's primarily English. So there's definitely a way in for vernacular speakers and also English speakers. But it just felt really appropriate because there's something about there's 3 characters in this work. The boy and the girl who are dating, or I said situationship, who are seeing each other. And then there's the mother on the peripheries who cleans up after them, but also sometimes joins them.
Yeah.
And I think to locate the story specifically in a context of Xhosa people, it happened in Cape Town. So it's a Xhosa space. And it happened also in Xhosa. And I actually remember when I was seeing this person and I was confused about a lot of things, because it was, you'll forgive me for being middle class, but it was one of the first times that I was dating in a working class community and traveling to the township to go see somebody. And there were a lot of codes that I did not understand.
Yes.
And I'd go back to my friends and say, this thing happened, I don't understand. And they say, you need to date isiXhosa, chomi. Jola isiXhosa.
Code switch.
Exactly, because these are the things that you're not understanding. So the language is also a very, very important thing. But hopefully it's not alienating. But there's also something quite titillating about it, because the people who understand it, like, it's quite a strong, visceral thing that you can have a reaction to. But the illusions of just mess and the mess we make of love.
I mean, from listening to you now, it's sort of connecting to a conversation we had in the first hour of the show when we were talking to Eben about the Penduring Awards, which celebrates and honors indigenous languages, practiced through content and publishing, et cetera, And the campaign that Joe Public has put out this year is Say It in Your Language. And it speaks to the essence of what you're saying, right? The importance of articulating your experience and your characters in a language that not only anchors the story, but also in a language that I can understand. But even I'm not a Xhosa speaker, but I can understand the Black experience in Xhosa.
That's it for
because
me.
it mirrors the Black existence in Zulu, in Setswana, in.
That's it for me. And also it's a thing that I definitely do, and I'm leaning more into writing in the vernacular. And to say, this is credible. This is credible. I don't need to write in English in order to find a stage, in order to find an audience. In fact, Black folk are the audience. We are the majority in this country, right? Black, brown folk. And we are an audience. And perhaps sometimes we don't spend enough time as makers cultivating an audience from home, from our communities, right? We get very comfortable with the middle class audience, which is black and white and color, all of these different things, right? But there's a place where we're from. And is it important to us that our mother understands the kinds of stories we are trying to tell, And that's what it becomes for me. If I go back home, and I tell the story, I'm from Kumbu, a village in the Transkei, If I go back home, how do I not alienate people? How do I invite people in, right? And how do I assert, even in the spaces where it's a bit like, oh, that's what you do, that yes, ndingumXhosa, wakwaXhosa, and my lived experience is ngesiXhosa. And also ngesi because of, apartheid, capitalism, whatever, but that it's a very important thing.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause here. We'll come back and maybe we'll explore a little bit further this theme of language. And of course, because now when you say this, it touches back to the other conversation I was reflecting on earlier. Who knew we'd have a Friday show today that's centered around language and how we weave and move through it? It's 10 to 3 o'clock on The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's the first elimination challenge, and to stay in the competition, the bottom 6 contestants must channel their inner Italian by baking a delicious handmade pizza using leftovers from the fridge. Who will survive to bake another day? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior. Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
It's either you have it or you don't. The Watermaster demonstrated what it takes to eventually lay your hands on gold. Cameron Vanderberg won the 100-meter breaststroke gold medal at the 2012 Summer Olympics in a new world record time of 58.46 seconds.
Still got a good lead, Vandenberg. Katajima won't get there. Does he get the world record, Vandenberg? He's done the lot in one big swim.
What a performance. Celebrate. Well done, Cameron Vanderberg. South Africa wins gold.
Vanderberg also represented South Africa at the 2008 and 2016 Olympics. He has won numerous world championship medals since his debut in 2007 when he took a bronze. Magical moments of the Olympics. Brought to you by SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024.
For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
I am hanging out for full access with Kondiswa James. Kondiswa is an award-winning actor, writer, director. And of course, there is a play that is... by the way, where's the play, Amaxoleko? Where's it going to be staged?
Mm-hmm. The play's going to be staged at Market Theatre at the Barney Simon, and it's going to open next week, Friday the 9th. We have previews on the 7th and the 8th of August, and we run until the 25th of August. I think that there are no shows on Monday and Tuesdays, but there's afternoon shows on Saturdays and Sundays in case, you know. There's definitely an age restriction, so bring your kids if they're over the age of 16. Yeah, there's some SNR. When I saw the poster as well, I was like, oh my gosh, this looks titillating.
It's provocative.
It's very, very provocative. But yeah, it's the Market Theatre, and we're rehearsing at the Market Theatre currently. And I don't think I mentioned this as well, but our actors are Shalima Mkongi, Luxolo Ndabeni, and Unambita Mpumlwana, who a lot of people know from Generations and all kinds of things. And these are people actually who haven't Umam Nambita was just recently in Winnie, but the other two haven't done theatre for quite a while. So it's really interesting to explore with people who are not familiar anymore, because everyone studied through theatre, right? Yeah. But it's been really, really great, and especially this week, and we're generating, and it's feeling good, and the work is settling. There's also like a huge AV component, technical component, because one of the things about the work is Utabisa, the main character. So she's polyamorous and she has a lot of relationships. And one of the fixes I felt, because I was told when I was developing the play, if she's having a lot of relationships, we need to experience it somehow. Yes. And then the conversation was, how does she have these relationships? Oh, okay, well, she has them online. She meets people on Bumble. She takes people on WhatsApp. She calls people on iMessage, blah, 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 on Facebook, all these kinds of things. And then I started to think about how the social media world and tech and the digital space impresses itself upon us in our real lives. It's an extension of us in a way. And that people don't need to be physically present to be present, because they're present through the digital space that we hold. So then it became quite cool to explore that through the AV, and that the AV becomes something quite literal, which is social media. And while Tabisa's doing things, while Tabisa's falling in love, while Tabisa's whatevering, there's these pinging, there's intrusions from her work, for example, her mother, for example, her other lovers, for example. So there's a huge AV component which we're currently working on at the moment, but we will get it done. I trust we will get it done, working with amazing people.
And that I think also speaks to how the theatre in itself is a space that's continuously fluid and also going through its own evolution, right? Because a few years ago, it was unheard of. You're bringing technology into the theatre, please. What are you talking about? Right. At best, can we just have, sound effects? Can the sound guy work hard? But now you're bringing in like this complete visual element, which adds the next dimension. Because yes, if you are dating on some kind of app, I need to be able to see what's going on in that story.
Exactly. And it's something I think a lot of people can relate to, but it also speaks to the kind of alienation of like the 21st century, 2024. And the alienating culture of capitalism and how we have these really strong relations, but they're happening through a screen. Or sometimes we feel connected, but we're actually completely alone because the other people are through a screen. So it's another exploration about this thing of being human and the extensions now that we have to attempt to be human together, and how we either can make use of them, harness them, or how sometimes they completely get in our way. And just seeing what happens. And also, it's something that I haven't done before,
Yes.
using AV. And it's something that I've been quite scared of. In some ways, I used to be quite a purist, although not a purist in the way of like realism, because the work, even this one, people will see, has got a lot of choreography, physical language. And like I said, the way that the text operates from like a casual realism to like hyper-political to like poetic, it definitely breaks the form of maybe what a real purist might consider. But in relation to technology in the space, I used to be very much like, no. But then, you start to think, we are in the 21st century, Apparently AI is the next frontier. I don't know. You have to join them. I don't know. But then you see it as well in theatre. You see other people using it. You see other people using it in interesting ways, abstract and literal ways. And then as a maker, you go, this might be interesting. Why not? And then you find a story where not only is it interesting, but it's necessary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As we sort of wind down to the tail end of our conversation, something that you said leading us into the break, and in my mind, I've been reflecting a lot on this conversation. There was a conversation held, Black Conversations, sponsored by that Milk Stout brand. And they were talking about language. Like I said, today's show suddenly touching on language. And they were talking about language and how even in language evolving in our various sort of spoken word and various tribes, there's something to be said and understood about that. A Xhosa person, Kondizwa, can say something in Xhosa to me, a Zulu speaker, without using the deepest Xhosa that I would not even fathom to understand. And somehow, though, because language also exists in the dimension of the physical, I completely understand what you are saying to me. And the message is not lost on me at all. And I'm just thinking that I guess that's the other element of the duality of your play for someone like myself or anyone else who might not even knows Xhosa at all, is that you'll be able to really resonate and get into it, because language is also embodied in the physical.
No, I really love what you're saying, actually. And I mean, language isn't just the words that come out.
Yeah.
It's also the tone. It's also the body language, right? There are a lot of things, microfacial expressions, things like that you can read and understand. Even if you're not understanding, this is exactly what's going on in the conversation. You can understand kind of the flow. Oh, okay, something upsetting is happening. Okay, and then because of language and migration, actually, and if you track language, and especially indigenous Southern African languages, there's a lot of mixing and overlapping and sharing of words. So every now and again, even the way that Afrikaans and even, I guess to a certain extent, English, I don't want to say borrowed. We took that stuff and we ripped it apart. Like when people speak Isipitoli, for example. So there's something that you can recognize that can really hold you in between the tones and the facial. And the other thing about the play, because of the physical language, this is always something I use, a device I use to try and take care of people who might not understand or might not have the stamina to listen to straight text for an hour, right? Is that I call my style magical realism, right? And a lot of people might disagree with me. But in that magical realism of it, there's a lot of other threads you can follow. You can follow the bodies. You can follow the lights. You can follow the movement of the costume. You can follow the choreography of the objects in the space, right? And that the bodies, the actors speak the words, but then the bodies also tell you things in the language of choreography as well. So there's definitely a way in for everyone, guys. Please go to that web tickets and buy them tickets.
I definitely think you are the best marketing person for your play, Amatlelegu. It's going to be a stage from myself and of course Kondizwa. We've got to say goodbye at this point in time because Ashraf is literally standing by the door to come through for the National Pulse. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. If you're traveling anywhere, be safe, enjoy the journey, and inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
top stories at 3 o'clock, a reaction to Zilla's GNU comments and a decrease in breastfeeding stats in Gauteng. A very good afternoon. Analysts say the remarks made by DA Federal Council Chair Helen Zille at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation have the potential to create unnecessary instability in the GNU. They were reacting to remarks by Zille, where she characterized the Government of National Unity as a grand coalition between the ANC and the DA. Political analyst Dr. Levin Doe says the GNU should develop a proper communication framework to avoid mixed messages.
So that the activities of the GNU should be communicated by specific people, and that should always be done in the interest of unity amongst the players in the GNU, and also to avoid unnecessary mixed messages coming from the different political parties, which has a potential to create confusion amongst ordinary members of society.
The Limpopo government will encourage municipalities to acquire their own borehole drilling equipment to accelerate water provision to communities. This is according to Premier Popi Ramathuba, who addressed the first sitting of the provincial legislature in Polokwane. She says municipalities must also buy water tankers to reduce reliance on private service providers.
A government will also consider the option of encouraging our municipalities to acquire their own boreholes drilling equipment to expedite the acceleration of water provision in our communities. In the same breath, all district municipalities will be encouraged to procure their own water tankers, which will reduce reliance on private service providers, because some of these things are man-made. And we believe by building in-house capacity, water challenges will be resolved.
A police officer is in a stable condition after being wounded in an incident in which 3 suspects were killed during a shootout with the police in Umlazi Township in Durban. Police say the suspects had hijacked a woman's vehicle in the area. Spokesperson Robert Netsunda.
A police officer is in a stable condition after he was shot at by suspects during a shootout, which left 3 suspected hijackers fatally wounded at T section in Umlazi earlier today. The suspects had just hijacked a woman of a vehicle at R section in Umlazi, and police responded swiftly. The suspects opened fire towards the police, and in self-defense, a shootout ensued. 3 suspects were shot and fatally wounded in the shootout. A police officer was shot in the arm and is in a stable condition. The suspects were found in possession of 3 firearms as well as the hijacked vehicle. The hijacked victim was not harmed.
Gauteng Health has reported a 7.4% decrease in mothers that are breastfeeding within 6 months of their children's birth. This comes as the world marks the 32nd anniversary of the World Breastfeeding Awareness Week. This week is celebrated in the beginning of August. Provincial Health spokesperson Mutalatale Mudiba has encouraged mothers to breastfeed for their children's health and well-being.
Now, it's important that we use this opportunity to urge mothers to continue breastfeeding, at least from the time when a child is born to up to 6 months, and also to even continue further up to 2 years and beyond, as this has been proven to be a very effective measure which has got unmatched health benefits for both the mother and the child. As the baby develops, the mother's milk provides the perfect nutrition.
And Kenyan Airways has launched a special package for East African citizens who are traveling between South Africa and East Africa. The Airways says they fly to Kenya 6 times a day with 4 flights out of Joburg and 2 from Cape Town. It also says it has a cargo capacity from the 2 cities. Speaking to our news desk, the airline's Kenneth Narisha Kene says the route between South Africa and Kenya is the most profitable route for Kenyan Airways.
It will be valid for a period of 1 year, and it will be offering 25% discounts to any ESC member Proof of citizenship, of course, through a passport will be mandatory from our end to ensure that this is not abused.
Recapping the top story at 3 o'clock, our analysts say the remarks made by DA Federal Council Chair Helen Zille at the Friedrich Naumann Foundation have the potential to create unnecessary instability in the GNU. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemele.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Sereno completes medical ahead of Kaizer Chiefs' moves. Kolisi set for SA return, and Simbini gears up for his third Olympic Games in Paris. More details at 3:30.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
You know what, South Africa? We're just not talking about enough. Huh? Use it in public. Use it in the taxi. Use it at the library. Hey, shh. Yes. Some might think it impolite, but successful people use it all the time. At restaurants, with friends, in boardrooms. Commands respect, eh? Oh. Finances is not a dirty word. Let's start talking about it, Mzansi. Find out how at livewithconfidence.co.za. Sanlam Life is a licensed life insurer, financial services and registered credit provider.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's the first elimination challenge, and to stay in the competition, the bottom 6 contestants must channel their inner Italian by baking a delicious handmade pizza using leftovers from the fridge. Who will survive to bake another day? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior. Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
And what a privilege to talk to you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every single day of the week, 3 to 6. It is the National Pulse, so thank you for joining us wherever you may be. Anywhere in the country, anywhere around the world. Do, by the way, download that SABC Plus app. It's brand new and it's really effective. The quality of audio is really, really super. So tell me what you think about it. We're going to talk about many things, including the issues of illegal connections in the city of Johannesburg, and we're talking electricity there. Then we've covered that story about Pretoria Girls High. I understand that the 12 girls, had that WhatsApp group and accused of some form of racism. Well, they've been found not guilty. So we'll certainly talk about that. We'll also talk about some of the most pressing issues in the country, because you know this. You have the power to drive the National Pulse, and you do that every single day. So what for you moves the National Pulse today? And you can connect on air 086 000 2003.